Okay, so content as a first-class citizen. What do we want to do? Well, we have this kind of amazing site that actually works, but it has a lot of technical debt, and we have a lot of different stacks working together. And we don't have code splitting of our CSS, which we actually wanted to have, but it never worked. And we need internationalization. And I'm not overly fond with the way we do this with Webpack, and I want to do something which is data-driven, so that we put our code and data and assets and everything in kind of a database to be able to do something smart with it as we use it. And if code is data, we need a way to reason about code. And the way we do that is with compilers. And we're using Webpack today, and we're using Bubble.js. But we're also using flow types, and they don't really work that well with the tooling in Visual Studio Code. It works sometimes, but it's workable at best, not good. There's something called Reason from Facebook, but that's so camel, so it feels like a big segue. And then there's TypeScript, which works excellent with Visual Studio Code, and we all are starting to love Visual Studio Code a lot. So I took a closer look at the TypeScript compiler API, and it turns out there's a single function that does everything you need to be able to use TypeScript as a compiler for your JavaScript. And that's kind of amazing, because now we can kind of take control of our code. And let's see here, what did I say? Right, so if we needed to present a specific view, right? What is it that we need to know in terms of this data-centric way of working in order to make this happen? So the goal is basically to produce a web page, but we want to know every dependency up front so we can do that really quickly. And so for each view, we need to know dependencies, CSS, data, and data can come in many different forms. Some of them are language-specific, and others are testing-specific. And so with this in mind, we went ahead and built something which sort of does this. And it's actually a fully featured sort of Webpack replacement, but very much tailored to what we want to do. And the way we build stuff right now is that we have React components, but we annotate them. With this little thing here, it can be very complex. You can have nested scenarios, recursion, arrays of stuff. And it allows us to create these wonderful editor experiences, like you see here. These are two different browser sessions. They are not connected in any way, except, of course, through a broadcast channel. But it allows us to sort of build up our React componentry like this. And this is, of course, something we can do live. And we can have really complex React components that expose features that we want to use. And so what I'm doing right now is that I'm actually hacking together a tab-based component, sort of. But I'm doing it with data. And now when I click this second item, maybe it should have been a link, but it actually switches between these things. And so what we're trying to do is that we're trying to change the way we build the application so that the application itself is defined in data. And this is something React is amazing at doing, right? This is why I love React, because it's this, you take the data and you can sort of push it into the components, and it just produces something which is workable. And with that, I have 1.5 minutes to show you more stuff. OK, cool. So what can we do? I want the experience as a developer to be as good as it can be. And for instance, something we can do is that, let's see, I lost my cursor. Here we go. Right. Something we can do is that, I don't know if you can see it, but we can achieve statement completion for our CSS files inside of our TypeScript files. Because the compiler infrastructure kind of understands that, oh, you're passing me a CSS file. Maybe I should generate a TypeScript definition for you so that TypeScript knows that I can actually import CSS files. This is sort of maybe not something you would say, OK, this is not really amazing. But when you think about how easy this is actually augmenting your tooling experience inside of Visual Studio Code, it's not that bad. The barrier of entry here is very low. I can sort of make things, I can make tooling happen, and I can make it work inside of Visual Studio Code without putting much effort into it. And all of this I've shown you right now is something which I had the luxury of building in about, say, 2 or 3 weeks. And it isn't a lot of code to get here. And the key takeaway sort of is that you should really turn your code and your application into data so that you can sort of massage it the way you want. And what we can do when we're done with this is that we will be able to serve a fully loaded page with hopefully like under 100 milliseconds with every dependency bundled inside the HTML. That's the goal.